all of us would love to just have a really fantastic meditation and then our clients are knocking on the door. But if you haven't put your shingle out that says you're in business in the first place, how is anybody going to know how to find you?
Right.
So yeah, I believe that you can absolutely pull clients to you. I do it all the time. It's really fun, but I also let people know, hey, here's what I offer. And it's called marketing. Well, hello there, prosperity seeker, and welcome to another episode of the Prosperity Approach. I'm your host, Allyson Chavez, and as always, I'm thrilled, humbled, and so grateful that you are tuning in to today's episode. You're going to be so excited that you did because of the special guest, Shanna Star, and I have to tell you just a little bit about her. I actually met her on her podcast. It's called the Shine Podcast, and I was like, oh my gosh, Shanna, I love you so much. I want my audience to meet you. And so Shanna is a full-time photographer along the Emerald Coast. She also contracts for 2 magazines. She is the host of the Shine podcast. Make sure you go look that up wherever you listen to your podcast. And she has moved 5 states and started her business over again before settling in Florida. That's where you're at right now, right, Shanna?
Yes. Yep, that's right.
Well, Shanna, welcome. Welcome to the Prosperity Approach. I'm so happy you're here.
Me too. I've been so looking forward to this conversation with you and all the goodness and seeing your beautiful face again. So,
oh my gosh, we're going to have such a great time. So, okay, so we got to start where I ended. You moved 5 states in 10 years. Okay, not 5 states in 50 years because you're not even close to 50 years old yet. 5 states in 10 years, building your own business, like building your business back every time. Will you tell it? What's the process of that? What the heck?
Yes. Well, that was not by choice, most of them. Of course, there's always a story. And the quick version is a little quip that I get to tell everybody is I was married to somebody who is still in the Air Force, but we are no longer together. So all those moves were because of his job, which was perfectly fine. You move every 3-ish years, but the last one was just 1 year because we decided not to be married anymore. So this last move to Florida was for me and for my healing process. This is where I wanted to be at. So I just had to start over every time. And it definitely taught me a lot, to be perfectly honest. So,
oh yeah. I mean, I've moved from one city to the next. And I'm like, how do I build my business?
Yes.
You move from state to state to state. So how were you able to do that? Like starting over again. And like, why did you do that? Like, why did you start over? Not why did you move, but why did you like start? Most people would be like, fine, I'm going to go work at the gas station. Like, this is crap.
Yes. I always thought that there would be an endpoint in sight, that eventually there would be stopping to move, or I would get to decide where to move. So I was excited about that. And I knew that it took me about 3 years every time to build a business, which then when I moved here on my own, I was like, okay, I'll give myself 3 years. And that's when I know that my business should be starting to thrive on its own. Unfortunately, 3 years is when we also moved every time previous to that. So just as I was starting to build and reconnect, but I did get down, I kind of switched then marketing and how to thrive and how to connect with people much more quickly in a way that worked for business, for success. Absolutely.
Oh yeah. Like you had to learn how to pivot and start over and rebuild really fast. And can I just tell you how much I appreciate you saying it was a 3-year process? I talked to so many people that are wanting to build a business and scale it to 6 figures in 6 months. And I'm like, you ever done something like this before? Nope, never done. You ever made 6 figures before? Nope, never done. I'm like, you need to give yourself more lead time for this. Holy cow, it's going to take you 6 months to get over your own crap that's going on in your head. And even then, I mean, it took me like 2 years to get over that. Longer, actually. Like, so I love the fact like we're having this real honest talk about the process and the timeline of business. And that was actually the best thing that I listened to when I was first starting. I heard some guy, I don't even remember who it was, but he had made millions and millions and millions of dollars. And he said, you need to give your business at least 2 years to become profitable. So you need to give it everything you've got for 2 years before you're even going to turn a profit. And that was such great business advice that I picked up. And I was like, okay, so I got to play this for the long game. I got to long game this for 2 years to make it profitable. So then I didn't have freakouts. I mean, I did, but I was like, no, this is 2 years. So it's okay that my one post didn't do anything. It's okay that the 3 emails I sent didn't do anything. Like, yes, I'm going to play a longer game here. What kept you enthusiastic every time you moved and had to start over?
I guess I almost, when you first start a business, you think everyone's going to support you. And after a while, those drop off
Yep.
because your inner circle no longer, they tend to not be your ideal client, which is perfectly fine and
Yep.
normal.
Yep.
And so this is going to sound, I don't know, maybe callous to it, but I almost started taking the approach of let's make it a game. Like, how many times can I reach out cold calling or reach out cold emailing into businesses? And let's start seeing the percentages. So rather than I don't hear 100% yeses, it became almost a game for me. And I think we all undervalue the networking that takes time because we want to meet somebody, hand them the card. That's our ideal client. And for me, that's why I knew I would start to meet people, network, work for other companies, build that. And I gave myself that time before I thought, and now is when I should start seeing some of that outcome that I've been pouring into.
I love that. I love that. And yeah, and I get a lot of women too, especially because I focus so much on the feminine, and the feminine is the pulling energy, right? And so like, well, I just want my clients to find me. I'm like, well, yeah, all of us would love to just have a really fantastic meditation and then our clients are knocking on the door. But if you haven't put your shingle out that says you're in business in the first place, how is anybody going to know how to find you?
Right.
So yeah, I believe that you can absolutely pull clients to you. I do it all the time. It's really fun, but I also let people know, hey, here's what I offer. And it's called marketing. And I think that's what
Yes.
people are so afraid of, especially when they get into business, because that word is just so daunting and just feels so overwhelming. But I love that you gamified it. And I don't think that that's callous at all. I think it's actually really healthy because then you are you're unattached, right? You're just like, well, we're just going to see what's the percentage of this and how long did that take? And you're kind of tracking and you're like, oh, well, this is really interesting for information's sake, right? And oh, can I tweak
Yes.
instead of like, if this one doesn't work, then that's a sign that I shouldn't be doing this, right? Like, at least that's what I would
Yes.
do. I would just play
And,
this sudden death match all the time.
and really, we tend to take it personal, at least at first in business, when we're
Yeah.
first starting to grow. Every no or not yet or not alike feels like a personal thing against our business that when we're doing wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And really, like you said, I feel like we can pull in our clients, but it takes time. Like everything that I post, I want people to be hot or cold for me. I don't want those lukewarm people who aren't going to support me, but it takes a while. It takes a long time to find your people for them to then find you. So I totally agree with that.
Yeah. Yeah, it absolutely does. And I think too, with that, taking it personally tends to be like, okay, more proof I'm not enough yet. More proof
Right.
I'm not good enough. More proof. And that's not
Mhm.
it at all. It means you haven't skilled
No.
up enough. It just means you haven't found them yet.
Yeah.
That's all it means. They said no, they're not interested. It's got nothing to do with you
Yes.
and your enoughness and all of that. So you still have a photography business, correct?
Yep. Yep. That's what I do full time. And then my podcast, I would say, is like another little part time thing going on that's still growing. So, yes, those are the two things I do.
That is beautiful. And you specialize in boudoir.
I do. I actually do a lot of boudoir and then also bachelorettes and all the fun girly things. So everything you see is very girly and very fun. And really, it gets to be kind of intimate with people because they get to showcase a lot of who they are. And a lot of them come to me, not the bachelorettes, they're there to have a party and have fun. But I get to connect with a lot of people. And it becomes more than just, I want cute photos of myself, because that's never the reason. It's always something that's going on in their heart. They might say it's for a significant other, but deep down they leave going, I feel beautiful. I feel better. And I get to be a listening ear and really start to hear their heart rather than just taking their photos. It's always more than that. It's about that enoughness.
I love that. So let's unpack all of that because I've had a boudoir photo shoot before, and it was actually one of the most healing and empowering experiences I've ever had. So, what got you into that first and foremost? And because it's kind of like almost like a sketch thing, like what naked photos, pornography. It's like, well, no, that's not the kind of boudoir I did, but okay. So, all right. So, what got you started and why are you such an advocate for it? Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So it actually started, I was working in Las Vegas, one of the places that I was living for a while, and I was working at a wedding chapel, shooting weddings every single day. And it was great. Don't get me wrong. It was really good experience, but I started to feel like I was meant to do something else. And I really like to be one-on-one with women or in small groups so that I can actually get to know them and hear their stories and what's hurting them and what they've overcome and all of that. So I actually had to start by photographing myself because if I wanted to shoot it, I have to show it. So I had to photograph myself. And ever since then, little sidetrack, I always say that people should do some kind of photo shoot of themselves every year because we go through hormone changes, divorces, or marriages, or heartbreak, or joy, whatever that looks like. And we just look different every year because of all of those emotions going through. So even for myself, I do photos of myself every year. So the reason kind of started because I wanted to connect one-on-one, and it became more and more apparent that I could do that through Boudoir just by hearing their stories. And the end, they'll come back to me, and it's like you said, a little bit healing for them. There's a piece that's always hurting, and we don't tend to heal because we don't think we're worth getting photos of ourselves, especially sexy ones. It feels like too scary. But when we do it, there's that healing piece. So.
Absolutely. In fact, I remember the experience I had. So I'm really good with the feminine energy. I'm really good in the flirt energy, which is the very playful, enjoying energy. But I remember distinctly when I crossed over from the flirt energy into the seductress energy, and it scared me. It scared me. Like I shut it down pretty quickly because of the power behind it. And there was nothing sexual about the seduction energy. And most people think that just means about sex and you're just seducing somebody to get into their bed or anything like that. It's like the most powerful energy of creation. And it's intimidating. Like the power behind her was like, oh my gosh, I should go back to the flirt. But the photographer I was with was like, whoa, like do that, like hold that. And it was just a look in my eyes. It wasn't me like doing any sort of provocative pose or anything like that. It was just, I just like leaned into that energy, and it was just like, it was like an atom bomb that went off. But it was so beautiful. It was so beautiful and so powerful. And have your women experienced stuff like that?
Yeah, to me, people always ask me, how long does it take to like tap into that part where they start to feel like they can be vulnerable? I always start by being vulnerable emotionally, and then it kind of pulls out that vulnerability to them. And it takes about 20 minutes where they're not sure, they're given that little flirt, and all of a sudden I'll have them look up and it's right there in their eyes, and it's a vulnerability with themselves to trust me, and it's huge. But it's like you said, like you start out flirty and you feel like it's almost too much and you're a little scared and a little timid. But it's extremely powerful, like you said. And it's just incredible. It's an incredible experience. I love it.
It is. I highly, highly recommend any woman out there to have that experience. It was so tasteful. There was nothing skanky about it. There was nothing untoward about it. I got to be in my own level of comfort, and and I'm sure that you're like that as well. You're not like, hey, put on this thong.
Right.
I'm just going to strut out your cool side and your 6-inch stiletto heels,
And what's interesting is when I first started doing it, probably the first, 5 or 6 years, the people who would come to me were actually women who were very conservative. And still, it's women who don't tend to show themselves very much. And like I said, they say it's for their significant other. And then by the end, they're the most wild and free, and they've opened up about just their whole lives. Because you probably know this as well. When I first go into a shoot, I like to ask, what do you love about yourself? Like, what's something you love on you? You could tell me eyes, and I'm perfectly happy with that. Okay. But I'm looking for, what do you love? And it's interesting. Women will probably 99% of the time always answer by telling me what they don't like and they hate.
Yeah.
And I have found that it almost breaks my heart still doing this for 15 years, still breaks my heart that that's the first thing, because we're too scared, don't feel worthy, don't feel enough to tell and to own up to the things that we love. And then after a little while, I'll ask it again and they'll start to open up. But it is a vulnerable thing, but it can be as conservative if you want. I have people going on the beach and wearing a little sundress, but you can still feel extremely sexy in that setting. It doesn't have to be, like you said, thong, lingerie, or nothing. That's up to everybody who steps in.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so beautiful. And with with the conditioning that we've had and the messaging that we have had from society, especially over the last, well, I would say 50 years, but like social media and all of the filters and all of the messages that scream at us that we're not enough, that scream that your hips are too big or your hips are too little, or get rid of that unwanted belly fat. I'm like, what's wrong with belly fat other than like, maybe it's not healthy, but like that, oh, and your butt's too square and your boobs are too this, that, and the other, like, and the arms and like, which is why I understand why the women that are like, let me tell you what I don't like about myself, because we've gotten the message loud and clear that without filters and without, products and without binders and like all of that, then we're not going to measure up and we're not going to be enough. But the experience I had, and in fact, I did this with a small group of women. I did this with my team. Actually, we did a retreat, and that was part of the retreat was this boudoir photo shoot. And we were super, super close. My team and I were really, really close. And so if they were comfortable, we were allowed to come in and like watch different parts of the shoot. And then we would look at the pictures of each other. And it was like, we could all see it like, oh, there you are. Like we would see, like when we would see it in the photos, like some of us started out really self-conscious. I'm like, I don't know where to put my arm. I don't know what I'm doing. And, and that didn't last very long, but we go through those and then we just like, we see this change. I wonder if that's like your most favorite thing is like when you finally like, you see her, the real woman.
Yes. I want to go back to one thing that you said about how we don't feel like we're enough unless we have all these filters and everything. And another reason that I really highly suggest every woman do it, and often more than once, because you're not 20, but you're now 30 and you're a woman and things change and shift and it's beautiful. So something that I think is we see hundreds of thousands of photos of other women looking sexy, looking beautiful, having filters, and they're showing with their best foot forward, which is fine, to each their own there. But I think sometimes we also then need to see ourselves in that same light rather than seeing just photos of other women. We need to go, I have that ability to be sexy, to feel sexy, to be enough, and to know that I deserve that as well. And I think that's another point of it is just seeing yourself differently in that moment helps change it for way longer than that moment, of course. But that is, absolutely one of my favorite shifts is when it feels awkward and they're kind of scared and they're nervous. And those are actually my favorite because I always tell them they listen better if they come in here a little nervous. and by the end, most women are like, yeah, I want to do this and I want to try that. And it's just a wonderful experience. And it leaves you feeling like, no, I have that in me and I'm enough and I'm able to do this.
Yes. Like that's me. Like that's me. And it's like, it reminds me way, way, way back in the day, there was a movie called Hook. And Robin Williams starred in it. Yes. Forgotten that he was Peter Pan and he goes back to Neverland and one of the kids just looks at his face and he pinches his cheeks and he looks at his eyes and then he goes, oh, there you are, Peter. and it's like that.
I love that movie. Yes.
Oh, there you are. Oh, there you are. And it's just this light that just comes shining out of your eyes when it's like, this is my body and I love my body and I am a woman and a woman has curves and a woman is round and a woman isn't stick straight. We don't have angles. We have curves and some of the curves are big and some of the curves are little and they're all so beautiful. And it's part of the beauty of being a woman and just really owning all of that.
I don't know if this is kind of sidetracking, but this is a conversation that I've had with both my stepdad and now my fiance. And we all see beautiful young girls. I live at the beach. We see plenty of them here all the time. And they're beautiful young women. They're 20 years old. Everything is, still up and, it's just different. But there's something about women once they get to their 30s, 40s, 50s, that they just walk differently. And the confidence, it's not that they have to try anymore because they become that rounder, fuller version of themselves. And the confidence changes if we allow ourselves to feel that confidence. And I watched a woman walk out and I'm like, my gosh, she is beautiful. And she got closer and closer from far away. I thought she was very young. She got forward and I was like, she's probably close to 50, which is not old by any means, but she just carried herself in a way that was like, that woman has confidence and she knows she's enough and she doesn't need to be 20 in the tiny little bikini. So
Yeah. Yeah. And
yeah.
isn't that the greatest, like the most attractive quality that men have in women is confidence. Like that's the thing that's most attractive to them. And not that we're confident so that we'll be attractive to men, but that's kind of a byproduct of our confidence. Is that like, and other women pick up on that as well. Such to your example with the woman on the beach, like you felt that from her. Like she just owned who she was. She wasn't trying to prove herself anymore. And there's such a relief. Like there's such a relief when you get out of that energy of proving, and it's take it or leave it. And I got nothing on what you choose to do with me. I choose to take me all the time. And if you leave me, then that's that's your deal, not mine. And to really like not have any attachments to that is just so beautiful. And that's one of the byproducts of knowing that you're enough. And then knowing that you're enough comes from the decision that you're already enough. And we as women don't have a huge sense of self. We're not programmed that way like men are. We're super, super adaptive, but we don't have a huge sense of identity. It's why we can be so adaptive. But then we look outside of ourselves for permission and validation. And is this okay? And I remember doing that. And I just turned 47 last week as of this recording.
Stop. Oh my gosh. Okay.
But I was a people pleaser for my whole life and most of my adult life. And to be out of that, and to be out of I don't need you to like me. And I don't need to pretend to be somebody that I'm not. It's just, there's this huge weight that falls off, but nobody gave me that confidence. Nobody gave me that permission. Nobody gave me that enoughness. I had to decide.
It reminds me, what you were saying just triggered something. I had to write it down. And it's the quote that you love yourself to life. And, you know, when somebody says, I love you to death, and really it's that you love yourself to life, because I see these women coming alive when they're older and they allow themselves and they give themselves permission to love themselves. And all of a sudden they glow and they're happy and they're confident and they walk differently and they can walk in their enoughness once they get to that point. But, and then we all struggle with that. We all have different things that hurt us or we go through. But at some point we have to start working on that heart and love ourselves back to life rather than hating it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's not to say that men don't ever feel like they're not enough or anything like that, but it is distinctly different for men and for women. And this is that boudoir shoot was such a healing. It was healing. It was so much fun. It was just like, man, I am rocking this bod that I'm in. Holy cow. And it was just, it was fantastic. It was fantastic. I highly, highly recommend it if you feel pulled to it. They need to work with you, Shanna, because you just have that.
Please, I would love that.
You just have that piece in you. She's worth flying to Florida for sure. And they've got some amazing. They got some amazing areas in Florida too that are conducive to a photo shoot. But let's talk for a second about your podcast. I think it's really interesting that you've built a podcast off of your photography business, because those two things don't really seem to go hand in hand. So tell me the reasoning behind all that. I mean, I think it's spectacular, but most photographers aren't like, I think I should start a podcast.
Right.
So there's a few out
there. But they speak solely on photography, which is great. We need those too. But really, I started to see how the conversation and the connection I was making with my clients really meant a lot. And they would reach out to me and I started to build a lot of relationships through that. However, I felt like I was being called or pulled towards helping more women. And for a while, I didn't really know about podcasting. I was like, well, I'm not ready for YouTube. I don't have the resources and time and energy to do that. And I was listening to another podcast and I was laying in this hotel thinking, this is it. That's why I'm supposed to do podcasting. And I'm supposed to just help women on a little bit bigger scale to feel like they're good enough. They have the ability with money and within themselves to do whatever they're called to do. And that's kind of where it started. And of course, I still touch on photography in there once in a while, but it's really about encouraging women in who they are. So, and still I'm a tech nerd, camera to computer, just different tech. So
yeah, it's beautiful. I love it. And it's so appropriately named Shine, to just remember who you really are. And there's one word that's reserved for women that men don't experience, and that's radiance, which is another way to describe shining, right? Like I've seen really good looking men before, but I would never say that man is radiant. But I have seen radiant women who just...
That's interesting. I'm going to have to write that down. I like that.
Yeah.
It actually came after my middle name is Star. I did not name myself Star, therefore, whatever it means. But then I was like, why am I not using something that was given to me to help that? So that's where it came from. But you're absolutely right about, I like that radiance. Yeah. Something else, I don't know about if this goes towards who's ever listening, but another thing that I've noticed is when and not everyone can do this in their business, when I photograph myself and show it, and when I'm vulnerable, it allows other people and gives them permission to be vulnerable. And I'm not saying everyone go post your naked pictures. That's not it at all.
Right.
You can have headshots or explain what you're doing. And I feel like a lot of us are using social media to connect with people. Mm-hmm. And so if you're doing some of these things, it's still a great way to connect and to give permission to the women around you that are following you and seeking you and watching you do the things. So if you can lead in that too, I think that's a great way. And we don't all want to be, showcasing ourselves. But I found for me, as I showcase myself, it gives permission for women to slide on into.
It does, because there's something vulnerable about us being photographed.
Yes.
Right. Without, and I absolutely approve of editing and, a little bit of photoshopping here and there, but I still want to be recognizable. Like I still want people who meet me in person to be like, oh yes, I recognize you from your picture, instead of,
yes,
look at like your picture.
Scary.
Right. Which I love how you said, get your pictures done every year, because you go through life and you change, your expressions change, your body changes. And in fact, I did a photo shoot. My first professional photo shoot was done in Italy 4 years ago. And it was so fun. And I loved it. And those pictures turned out amazing. And I'm still using a lot of those, but I'm like, who is that woman? Like, that's not who I am anymore. I'm a better version of me than I was 4 years ago. And we did Maui a couple of years ago, and that was really fun. And I'm going back to Maui in a month just for a photo shoot. So that...
Oh, perfect. Oh, good.
That's the main reason.
Even more now.
That is the reason, so that we can get this version of Allyson. And Maui's my happy place. And so we're gonna...
It's interesting. Because you said you didn't even recognize yourself from that 4 years ago. And I look at photos of myself and it even changes in your eyes because, I went through a divorce. So I look back and I go, oh, I was really sad then. Even if I'm smiling, you can just see the differences in changes and maturity and happiness. And so I love that you're doing that. I'm so excited for you.
Thank you. Yeah. Your whole countenance changes through life and through, I love that. And we're in such a digital age that it's wonderful to document the sad and to document the happy and the exultant and everything in between. And to remind yourself, I think that you're here to remind women of their enoughness and to remind women of who they really are, and that we're born to shine. We're born to shine, and we each shine in our own unique ways. And my shine looks different from your shine, Shanna, and your shine looks different from your sister's shine, or your client's shine. Yeah. But one shine is not better than another. It's just different, which adds to just the beauty of the radiance.
And what's so interesting about the photography part of people feeling enough is, even my now fiance has heard this. He'll, be an assistant on not a boudoir, but other sessions, family or wedding or all of that. And he'll hear people leave and go, that was the best session I've ever had. And he'll turn to me, and we've talked about, he goes, they haven't even seen a photo. You could have literally clicked nothing. And it's really about seeing them and complimenting the things that I see. And as a woman, it's a little bit easier as a photographer because I can point out maybe things that are more intimate, like maybe their butt looks great in something, and I can point those things out. But they already feel that, and they should. Like, the experience in any business, I would say, is most of it. Of course, the product has to be good and the service has to follow that. But if you can leave feeling or making them feel incredible, then that's already part of it. They already feel more enough than when they started.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the experience. 100%. It's the experience. that they have. I had a friend who is a makeup artist here locally, and she is one of the highest paid makeup artists in the state. So people would get in her chair and they'll be like, wow, you must be the best makeup artist in the state because of how much you charge. And she said, actually, I'm not. There are people that are more technically savvy and they're more technically advanced than I am. But I'll tell you what, the experience you're going to have with me in this chair will be unlike any experience you have. And that's why I charge what I charge. And I love that. And she gave that to me as in a moment when I didn't feel like I was enough at that part of my life. And I remember thinking, man, I wish that I could deliver an experience like that so that I could hold my value and hold my enoughness with my prices. And God brought her into my life at the exact right time. That's been probably 8 years ago. And that has stuck with me all this time. And now it really is about the experience. And yes, you need to fulfill. And yes, you need to have a high quality product and all of those things. But at the end of the day, it's what's the experience that people are going to have with you, and what experience do you want them to have with you? And that is quintessential feminine, isn't it?
Yes. And as a business owner, that actually makes me better too, because what I get to do is really focus and give you true compliments that I feel. Yes. If you have crazy hair, I'm not gonna be like, your hair looks great and flat. I'm going to come from a genuine place, but I get to stop focusing on myself and really focus on my client, who they are, and hone in on all the beautiful things that I get to see in them. So that makes me a little bit better too, as far as like, stop focusing on myself 100% of the time, because it's not about me. So it's been 100%. A wonderful thing.
I love it. Oh man. Oh, Shanna, I could talk to you for days and days and days about this.
You're wonderful.
And I know people are like, how do I find her? So Shanna, tell us how we can find her. I know you have a super cool gift for everybody today. So take the floor and shine for us, darling.
Yes. So you can find me. I have 2 Instagrams because the 2 businesses there. So it's Davista Photography. It's half David, half Starla. So it's Davista Photography. And then the other one is the Shine Podcast with Shanna Star. Look up Shine Podcast. You'll see my blonde and pink hair. Hard to miss. So that's perfect there. Yes. And that's mostly how you can find me. You can find me wherever you listen to all of the podcasts as well. So.
I love it. I love it. And is there anything that you had for us, a freebie?
So yes, you can head to Davista Photography and you can look up the 30-day travel guide. And what that is if you're going to be visiting the Florida area and you have no idea where to start, I've lived here for 5.5 years now. So it's all the fabulous things. It's all where to go, vendors I love, other vendors that make you feel beautiful in the beauty industry, and all of the things.
Oh, I love it. I love it. You would think that it doesn't have anything to do with what you're doing, but it absolutely has everything to do with what you do. So I love it. I love it. See how it's all connected? The podcast is connected to photography, which is connected to the travel guide. I love it. And we'll put all of those links in the show notes so you guys can just go right there. So Shanna, thank you so much. This has been such an honor, such a delight to have you on. Thank you so much for sharing your shine and your radiance with everyone.
Thank you. It's been so good to see you again. I've been looking forward to it. So thank you again.
Likewise. Thank you. And those of you tuning in, again, we thank you so much for being here. And until next time, remember, prosperity becomes you.